Hello. How are you?
Keeping it real, keeping it real, keeping it real with Shannon, shining through, laughs and insight, shining so bright. Keeping it real, it feels so right. Real, keeping it real, keeping it real, keeping it real.
Hi, and welcome to the show tonight. Thank you so much for joining us. And
Hi.
hello to my co-host. How you doing?
Hi.
Are you hanging in there in this cold weather?
Oh my God, I'm trying to.
I know what you mean, but tonight you're gonna get hot because our special guest, he's real hot and he knows a lot of stuff. So I'm sure you'll get warm by the time you finish talking to him. But
Yes.
before we before we bring him on, I must say these three things. Well, first we want to send our prayers to Miss Guthrie about her mother's disappearing, and we're praying that she comes home safely, and we believe in God, and He's going to bring her home safely.
Mhm.
And also, I just want to just crucify that president of yours for talking about the Obamas again, and now I'm gonna have to send a message to President Obama and Michelle. Now, look, it's time for y'all to stop them going high when they go low. You need to say something because
I
they're not
know.
supposed
I
to be doing
agree.
enough is enough. Everybody
I
else is talking, and they haven't said one word. Now it's time to say something now. So
know
please
it is.
give me a
Sometimes
break
you
today.
gotta say when you go low, we can go to hell.
Yeah, you are professional enough to know how to say it and how to form it and say it. So look, we need to hear from you. Enough is enough now.
hmm
And also, you haters on Bad Bunny at the halftime. That look, stop hating on people. The more you talk about them, the more you know they're doing something good. Leave the young man alone. He did a good job. If you couldn't follow along, that's on you. So hey, keep it going, Bad Bunny. We love you. Anyway,
Exactly.
let's bring on our special guest now, Dr. Divine Pryor. He's Chief Executive Officer of People's Police Academy. He's the Senior Advisor for Community Capacity Development. He provides his expertise in issues as mass incarceration, school safety, and community issues. He has extensive knowledge and experience in the criminal justice system. One of his main concerns is prison reform. He was incarcerated at a young age, and now he is the most sought after speaker. Dr. Pryor's lifetime story is one that young people can take a look at, and what he's saying is whatever you do, you can always change your life and become the best in life, and that's what he has done. And we are pleased to highlight him tonight for Black History Month. So let's bring him on, Dr. Divine Pryor.
Welcome, welcome.
Good
How
evening. Good evening.
are you?
I'm fantastic. How about yourself?
Good.
Well, look, it's Black History Month, and we just pleased to highlight you tonight because you have a story to tell, and we just appreciate your involvement in the community. That you're just involved in so many things. We don't even have time to talk about everything tonight. But one that I know your main concerns is prison reform, and you have a lot of information to share about what you want to do and how you would like to change things. So, why don't you just tell us, starting off, just a little bit about who you are?
Well, I am Dr. Divine Pryor, but I wasn't always that. I was a young black male in the public school system. I was very inquisitive. I was um, very passionate. I love to read, write. I love science. I love math. And, that's what I wanted to do. And so apparently I was not being stimulated to the degree that I needed to. So I was doing other than what they thought I should have been doing, and they said that I was disrupting the class. They said that I was incorrigible and that I needed to be placed elsewhere, and they placed me in detention. And lo and behold, here I am in detention, organizing the kids, helping them with their math, their spelling, their science. They still doing my thing. And so they said I was disrupting detention. So then they said, well, we got to kick them out of the school. And then the streets embraced me with open arms. And that's how I ended up on the streets, but I always had a book in my pocket. still reading, still loving education. And so ultimately, I end up, in the prison system. And I ask myself a question: how does somebody who just wants to read, write, and do math and science, who just has a love and a passion for learning, end up in here? And then the
Mhm.
next question is, I wonder how many more black males like me are in here. This is long before the school to prison pipeline report came out. This is long before we understood there was a connection between poverty and incarceration, and high unemployment and incarceration, and failing schools and incarceration. Long before any of this research was published, here it is, this young black man just wondering, how did I get here?
Mhm.
And so I could go on, but I realized that something needed to be done. And so I started looking around, asking questions, didn't know anything about evaluating and assessing. And I ran into a librarian who told me that you're going to go to school while you're here. And that's how I ended up, getting the tools that I needed to really do an analysis of the prison industrial complex, and realize that what happened to me was not a coincidence, but it was part of a much larger set of issues that come together and impact particularly young black men.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So, what would you say, Dr. Pryor, that what is it that we really need to concentrate on with our young people, young people, especially our males? Because I mean, some of the young women is just as bad. I mean, they got some filthy mouths as well as too. But for some reason, they want to prey on our young males. What would you say, even with parents, that you need to be paying attention to your children?
Well, I'm going to say something that, might not be the most popular thing to say, but I'm going to say it anyway. I think that, while, parents might be, a little disappointed in our youth, and we're saying that the youth are out of control and that the youth are doing this and that. Someone once said that when you point one finger, you got two pointing back at yourself. If our young people right now have gone awry, if they've gone astray, if they're out of control, then who's accountable for that? Because certainly they didn't raise themselves. They were
Exactly.
raised by parents. They were raised by the community. They were raised by society. And I think that we need to first find out who should be held accountable for the fact that our young people are out of control. They've lost their sense, their way. They've lost their values. They've lost their principles. They've lost their ethics. They've lost their sense of well-being. And we have to somehow restore that back. Because right now, we're in a situation where our young people, to say that they're out of control is not even adequately describing the situation, because we have young people now killing each other. We have young people killing themselves, right? We have a high suicide rate amongst teenagers in America today. We have young people who are strung out on drugs. We have young people who are being recruited into gangs. We have young people who are, engaging in all kind of illicit activities, and it's almost like they're in self-destruct mode. So
Wow.
much so, so much so that adults are now almost afraid of young people. I mean,
Yes.
let's just be honest.
Yes,
Exactly.
How
but
many?
it's
How
so
many?
much to me that they're just the kids are pretty much raising themselves. I know you're saying put the accountability on the adults and the parents, which we should be held accountable. A lot of times the parents are saying, I'm at work, and they're working many hours, so they're not really paying attention. And even when they're home, they're not paying attention to the children. So, I mean, that's what the issues are there too. There's no one really to kind of guide them and nurture them. Even in your case where you said that you loved education, but nobody was there to really nurture that love for education for you.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean, I think that what we recognize, well, we have to ask the question: how did we get here? Right? That's the big question, because we weren't always here. There was actually a time when communities were real close, right? When a child got out of line, I could discipline that child. If you do that nowadays, the parent might want to fight you because you corrected their
See,
child, right?
that's
So,
the problem. That's the problem. If you discipline them or try to say something to them, why are you saying something to my child? Why are you doing this? Then when something happened, oh, you was there, you saw it, and you didn't even say anything. Well, which one do you want? Do you want my help as the village, or don't you want my help as the village? So that's why sometimes, a lot of time, you just don't even say anything.
well, you got to understand that, and this is very deep, right? We are a traumatized people, a broken people. You got to remember that, folks say, that happened in the past. Why don't you just forget about it and move on? Just imagine 300 years of chattel slavery. I couldn't even describe it in words. The dehumanization, the degradation, the total destruction of culture and mores, tradition and music and values, everything decimated in our culture. 300 years. And then another 120 years of Jim Crow racism. And then finally they said, okay, y'all can go now. Yeah, but we can go where? And go how? Because we weren't allowed to own property. Why? Because we were property. We weren't allowed to accumulate wealth. We weren't allowed to buy life insurance. We wasn't allowed to do most things that human beings were doing. So when you said go ahead and go, where were we going? Not to mention the fact that we were trying to rise up out of this centuries of trauma, of being hung and being lacerated and being separated from our children, families just being destroyed, all of this, and there was no relief. We still have not gotten the relief that a people that have gone through 420 years of oppression should have. There's been no social workers coming, there's been no clinicians coming. So if my behavior is a little peculiar, considering the past that I just emerged out of, please excuse me. But I think that we can provide enough of what has occurred to us to give some understanding of the condition that we're in. So this is a multi-pronged situation.
Dr. Pryor. Oh, go ahead on Tiffani.
I was going to say, why, as a people, we can't break that cycle. Yes, we were enslaved for 300 years. We were part of the segregation and Jim Crow. But when are we going to say, no, enough is enough? We can stand up and we can do better.
Well, there's some of us who said that. I'm a living example of that. I refuse, in spite of all that we've gone through, in spite of the fact we've been pushed out, locked out, or shut out, in spite of the fact that we've been mistreated, in spite of the fact we've been reduced to second-class citizens, in spite of all that, I still decided that I'm going to emerge, I'm going to be successful, I'm going to move on, I'm going to not only move on, but I'm going to reach back and I'm going to pull some of those other folks that I left behind up with me, and I'm going to commit my life to doing this. So there are some of us who realize that, yes, we've gone through this. We can't erase the past. Yes, we've been hurt. Yes, we've been harmed. Yes, we've been mistreated, but we're not going to allow that to determine our destiny. Exactly. We're not going to allow our past to determine our future. And so we understand that while we're seeking to move forward, we're going to address the issues along the way, because I don't have the luxury of stopping everything and working on this and then work on that. So we have to be people who are multifaceted, right? We have to work on our healing, while at the same time we're working on our recovery, while at the same time we're working on our restoration, and we can do it. The fact that we're here even talking tonight on this show is a testimony to who and what we are. The fact that we survived the inhumanity that we've survived is the testimony to the intestinal fortitude that's a part of our very DNA. The fact of the matter is that we have within us the wherewithal to do anything we put our minds to. We just need to be told that we can. We need to be shown that we can.
Hold that thought, because we got to come back, because I have something I have to say to you about this 400 years, because I think we done passed that part of the 400 years. We're going to take a quick break and we're going to be right back.
Oh yeah, it's Shannon.
I don't know why you're so sad. You've got a roof over your head.
You gotta stop with that depression stuff. You alright?
It just feels like it's coming from everywhere.
Do you want to talk about it?
You can talk to me if you're feeling sad.
Whenever you need to talk, I'm here, okay?
Oh yeah, it's Shannon. Keeping it real. Keeping it real. Every Tuesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, on Facebook, YouTube, it's on tonight.
we're back joining our guest tonight, Dr. Divine Pryor. Now, Dr. Pryor, now I know we always go back to, what we went through so many years ago, but I feel it's time now that we stop. We're not going to forget what happened back then, because we have to remember that the people who died for us, who was beat up for us, now we didn't going through so many generations now that we're at a generation now that we can do the things that we couldn't do in the past. I mean, things now are much easier for people. Yes, there's still racism, there's still all of that kind of stuff. But if we put our hearts to it and we teach our young people, the older people, we have to bring this generation up. And we have to let them know that, look, you put your mind to doing something, you can do it. Because we can't keep saying that people are keeping us down, because they're not. They're not keeping us down. Yeah, we still gonna be fighting racism or whatever, but we can still make things happen. And I feel that we need to stop thinking about what happened way back there 300 and 400 years ago. Because this is a whole wiped out generation. This is a whole new generation. Now I'm getting ready to leave and meet my maker one day. And so I got to make sure my granddaughter and them, that's another generation. And they can make things happen. Just like you made things happen. I made things happen. Tiffany made things happen. Everybody can make things happen if that's what we want to do. And we have to stop being afraid of our young people, because these are somebody's children, our children, and we need to let people help us discipline our kids, because you can't see your kids no 24/7. If you at work, you need to have somebody on that block or the village or whatever to let them know. Like when I ended up, after me and my husband separated, a single parent, but my block, I let them know, if you see her somewhere she ain't supposed to be or bringing somebody home, you let me know. And that's what happened, and that's what it takes. And we need to just stop all of this old nonsense about they don't want you to say anything to their children. I know about that. I went through that when I worked for the Board of Ed, with the parents coming in there talking about they don't want you saying anything to their kids or whatever. And my thing was with them, okay, well then when something happened to them, then don't come up here and complain that something happened to them if you don't want us disciplining the kids. Because back in the day, you could in school discipline children. But now they don't want you saying anything to the children. And we need to get away from that. We just really need to get away. If we plan on saving these young people, then we all have to be involved, and we have to stop being afraid to say anything to them.
I agree with you 100%. You and I have no disagreement. I provide the background information not as an excuse, just as an explanation. As we begin to try to fix the problem, we got to first know what the problem is. We need to know how we got into the situation, the circumstances, the conditions, so that we can develop the tool to get them out. So I agree with you 100%. Nothing that you said do I not agree with. And in fact, what you said actually, I think, kind of paints the picture for how we move forward. We have to be courageous. We got to be brave. We got to say, lady, listen, your son was out of line and he needed to be corrected. And I thought that you would appreciate the fact
Right.
that I, took my time and went out of my way to try to make sure that your child was okay. I think that you need to look at this thing a little differently. That's one. Second thing is, this whole thing about being scared of our children is absolutely insane. I remember when every now and then I would walk upstairs and check my son's room. Not often, because I'm tired at the end of the day, but every now and then I go up and check. I remember the man asked me, I couldn't believe this course. He asked me why was I in his room. So I started looking around. I said, well, where's your room? So the last time I checked, I was paying the mortgage on an entire house. Oh,
Exactly.
you mean that room that I'm allowing you to stay in? So what I did, I moved him downstairs to a bigger room. He said, "Thanks, Pops, man, for moving me in the big room." I said, "I didn't move you in the big room. I moved you closer to the door." You see, that's how we have to. That's how we have to deal with our children.
Exactly. Exactly, Dr. Pryor. That's right. This is what I'm saying. Because they see, when you don't let them know you mean business, it's just like I was talking about Fred about her grandson. And she up there talking about he don't want to do this for her, she don't want to do that. And she like 80 something years old. No, honey.
Mhm.
If you can't help out and do things around, you know what you can do. You can find
Yeah,
your own place to
that's
stay
true.
at.
I don't know
These
why
young,
they say they scared. Why they would be scared of their own kids, but I don't know where that came from because it was once upon a time back in the days.
No,
yeah,
they
let's
not.
talk
They
about.
not. They are. No, they. Let me tell you something, and I can tell you one offhand. They are afraid of their children because I know one had a because even when like I said when I was working with the young people before, and this young man came in with his mother, 15 years old, and he had beat her up, right? So she was bringing him to the office to get him transferred to another school, because he had been acting up and stuff. And I mean, he's standing there looking right at me, and I looked at her and said, "He beat you up, and he's walking behind you. What's wrong with this picture?"
Yeah, something's wrong with that picture.
That's what I said. That's what I said. Oh, what's wrong with this picture? And he's
See,
walking behind you.
I'm old school. I come from the school where my parents say, "I brought you in the world, and I'll take you out of here." I
Yeah.
Exactly.
mean,
I tell mine, you want to meet mommy or do you want to meet Tiffany? Because Tiffany
exactly,
will beat you
exactly, and
down like
it's your
a woman
choice.
in the street.
But ain't you so generous to give them a choice, right? And it's your choice, you know.
Mommy,
But see, just like you said before, Dr. Pryor, about them, because I can't get that little boy out of my head. He was only 13 years old when he came to the office, and the mother's talking to me about his behavior and all that kind of stuff. And he turns around and look at her and say, "Well, you need to shut the F up, right?" So I'm waiting for her to get up and find her picking him up off the floor, right?
Exactly.
She said, "Miss Shannon, you see how he talked to me?" I looked at her.
You got to
I
be kidding me.
I need to be kicking your behind this. And ask me, you see how he's talking to me? You let him talk back to you like that?
Unbelievable. So we have some work to do. This is a
A
we
lot of
thing. This
work
is
to
not a
do.
me thing. Because I remember when I was coming up, if you did something wrong in school, I remember a teacher. Her name was Miss Hunt. She'd grab you by that ear and she would walk you 3 blocks to your house and then ring the doorbell. And when your mother or father opened the door, she would tell them what you did. And my mother said, "You did that," and then she would grab the ear. So you wait till your daddy get home. So you got it from the teacher, you got it from your mama, and you got it from your daddy when he came home that evening. So we wasn't so willing to get caught, at least, being out of control. And we were very respectful. I remember when Miss Jones, you would walk by, you'd hurry up and you'd stop doing whatever you was doing that you wasn't supposed to, whether it was smoking a cigarette or you was losing foul language. We still had respect for our elders. And
Exactly.
certainly those elders who had been seasoned in age and probably could use some help across the street, we still did that kind of stuff. Chivalry is not dead. We just need to restore these things because our folks have kind of lost their way. And it's going to take brave champions like us to lead the way and let folks know that anything is possible. I'm a living example. 1990 was the year when I was released out of the prison system, and I came home and I decided to make a career out of my studies, a career out of my experience, a career out of my insight. And that's the reason why I've developed so many different interventions, so many programs, so many projects to work with you, to empower you, to organize and engage communities and civil activity. I've done so much over the years to contribute to my community because I know that it was a need that had to be filled. And I know that God didn't send me through that system for nothing, that there
Okay.
was a reason why I went through that system.
So
but what made you
what would you
decide? I'm
oh
sorry. Go ahead. I was just going to ask, what made you decide that when you had gone into prison, and then I guess it was time for you to come, that you wanted to make a change, that you were not going to go back, you were not going to be that statistic.
I because I felt that I had disappointed, my parents. I had let them down, and that bothered me. I disappointed myself because I, couldn't figure it out. And I said that, the only thing I could do is be a living example. Demonstrate. I can show you better than I can tell you. And I remember my parole officer when I went to visit him. He asked me what was my plans, and I said, "Well, excuse me a second." I went in my briefcase and handed him a portfolio. He opened the portfolio up, and I had all the different certificates I had gained while I was away. I had a strategic plan of what I was going to do first, second, third, where I was going to be in 5 years. He started calling in the other POs. He said, "Hey, listen, Gary, Tom, come look at this. I've never seen anything like this." And he turned to me and asked me, "So what do you want me to do?" I said, "I just want you to support me, bro." Do you know that me and him ended up becoming friends? My parole officer actually became my friend. And when he passed away 10 years later, his wife actually called me to speak at his funeral. And I
Wow.
told them the same story that I'm telling you. I told at the funeral wasn't a dry eye in the house. Two
Mhm.
people from two opposite ends who you think that would never could never come together for any reason actually became good friends. And he actually invited me to things. I invited him to things. And it was that, was that motivated me that there was somebody who believed in me, somebody who was willing to support me, somebody who's willing to embrace me. And it was that, just that little bit right there that propelled me to where I am today. And I have no regrets,
So, what would you suggest? Uh, well, we can do prevention as well to keep them from going in, or
right?
if they happen to get in, what do you think they need to be doing, even to help them get themselves together, so when they come out, they'll want to do better or want to do something for themselves? Do you think we should have more programs in the prison? Or because I know we have programs, preventive programs already out. I don't know, maybe they're not using them like they should be using them or what. But since we have so many young people in jail, in prison, what do you feel that needs to be done to, to get this thing in place?
Well, I think that if you're going to have somebody in your custody, in your care for any number of years, I think that you have a responsibility. So this goes all the way back to the sentencing judge. Actually, if the judge is going to send you to prison for 3 years, 5 years, however many years, I think there should also be a formula that goes with that. That while you're in prison, you will do A, B, C, D. In fact, I think that the judge should attach those achievements and accomplishments to your release. So, in
Mhm.
other words, you go to the board, and the parole board has got to make a decision on whether or not they feel you should be let go. But if they had a criteria to work with, they say, okay, this is what the judge prescribed for you when you were sentenced. She said that you needed to go to school, you needed to get anger management, you needed to get this and that and this. And you do those things, then you have earned your right to be released. And if you
Oh,
have not done it, well, we know the opposite. So I think we have to be more intentional with what we do. Because now what they do is just sentence you to 20 years in prison, and you can decide for 20 years you're going to do nothing. That all you're
mhm,
going to do is be a porter. That all you're
mhm,
going to do is go out in the yard and lift weights, or you're going to talk on the telephone. You're not required to do anything. There's no mandates for you to engage in self help, for you to engage in any kind of clinical intervention, for you to get substance abuse support if that's what you need, or mental health support. There's no requirements for this. So
mhm.
if people seek it out, then they can benefit. But if you don't, there's nothing that comes back and haunts you for not doing so. So I think that we have to require that. Then the second thing is, I think we got to get to some of these older guys because they're inside the prison glorifying that lifestyle and making these young people think that this is some kind of badge of honor for you to come to prison. We have to completely change that. So that narrative is all wrong. We need to let them know that this is the worst thing that you should do. You should never want to come to prison for any reason whatsoever. So we have to work on several levels. And then, of course, when you get out, because I don't know if a lot of people realize this, but in the United States, you don't really start doing your time until after you do your time, meaning that there are things that's called collateral consequences or civil disabilities that attach themselves to a conviction. So that when you get home, you have many barriers that you have to overcome just for you to be able to acclimate back into society. For instance, if you were a licensed plumber, when you get convicted, you lose your license.
Mhm.
And you don't have, if you get arrested with drugs, particularly on the college campus, you lose your right to apply for financial aid. In some states, they take away your Medicaid, your health insurance if you convicted. If you're a woman and your children have to go into the foster care system, if you don't visit your child 15 out of a 22-month period, the foster care agency is required by law to petition for your loss of parental rights. So that's another collateral consequence. Not
Oh,
to mention the fact that you want to be a responsible mother or father, but if you cannot get a job, if you can't support yourself, then you're violating your parole. What a lot of folks don't realize is that the vast majority of people who go back to prison who are on parole is not because they committed a new crime, it's because they violated one of the conditions of their parole. The conditions say you got to have a job, you got to have stable housing, You got a certain curfew you have to follow, and if you don't follow that to the letter, you can be violated. So there are many things that we need to change. I mean, if a person has done their time, I think they paid their debt. We should have mechanisms in place to ensure that that person gets back on their feet. Because I want you to work. I want you to pay taxes because that means that you're contributing to society. You become a responsible individual. That means you can care for yourself. You can support your children, and the system don't have to support you.
Well, well,
That's just the quick 30-second version.
Dr. Pryor, you have been a wealth of knowledge. I really hope
Well,
that we
we're
get
gonna go into our after show because I have some more questions for you. So we're gonna end this part of the show. So you won't hang around for another 10 minutes. We're gonna go into after program after show because I have a couple more questions I need to ask you. So look, thank you for joining us for this part of the episode. You can stick around for our after show with Dr. Pryor and we go get some more information. But thank you for joining us tonight. You can always see us on Saturdays at Brick 5:30 p.m. and 2:30 on Manhattan Neighborhood Network. And as always, we'll see you next time.
It's Shannon. Oh yeah, it's Shannon. Keeping it real, keeping it real. Shannon. Oh yeah, it's Shannon. Keeping it real, keeping it real. Keeping it real, keeping it real. Oh yeah, it's Shannon. Keeping it real, keeping it real.
Well, thanks for sticking around for our after show. We have some more questions we wanted to ask Dr. Pryor. Dr. Pryor, what I wanted to ask about the prison system is that how is it, or do you think it can be changed that some of the young people that goes to prison, particularly like Rikers Island and places like they do like little minor stuff, like
Hmm.
the kid with the book bag that they say he stole from that kid, and and
Right.
and they kept him in there for like 3 4 years over a book bag, which never added up to made any sense whatsoever, because
Hmm.
the kid that the book bag belonged to ended up moving back to the country they came from, and then the DA in the Bronx, like she wouldn't approve even for him to get out on bail when the neighbor agreed to pay for the bail. Things like that. People that only older people, younger people that just commit maybe like a little crime like that, they shouldn't be put in a prison with people that's violent and stuff like that because you haven't really committed like a real crime. That's like minor. So they don't get hung up into that situation and they can continue their schooling and come on out and get back on the right track or whatever. That's one thing I see that they need to change and separate people who has not committed like a real felony or crime. And then, the ones that commit the real crimes and stuff like that, put them in there, see if they can be rehabilitated. Some of them can, and I think some of them can't, but some of them can. Or either like when you see people in there, say just like you was a person that wanted to read and do things like that. Well, if they see that you're a person that want to do something, then they should have some kind of program or something where you go to every day or every other day or what, just like you were going to school or something.
Hmm.
That I see that really needs to be changed.
I think that I agree with you 100%. It's something that we've been working on for a long, long time. This word rehabilitation, the system is like a pendulum. It swings this way towards punishment and then the other way towards rehabilitation. It goes back and forth. They might be moving towards rehabilitation, then somebody does something heinous, right? Like rape someone and kills them, then it swings all the way to punishment. It's unreasonable. They allow one single incident to define the whole era in criminal justice. We have a lot of programs, but they're disjointed. I think that they need to harmonize with each other, and they need to be well funded. They give you enough money for you to run a program for a year. The program's successful, and then the Ford Foundation decides to go on to the next whatever it is, right? So that's one of the problems. The programs are not resourced, and they're not given longevity. No one can expect any program to be successful in 1 year. You need time for that program to operate, to work out the kinks, to be evaluated, to be assessed in order for you to know what its impact is going to be, which means that we have to have long term investment. And I think that young people are worth investing in. I think that, this is our future. Our young people are all of our possibilities, all of our dreams, all of our aspirations are in our youth. What better resource to invest in than our young people? So you're absolutely right. These programs should be in the facility, but they should also be in the community, right? We need to open back up boys clubs and girls clubs, right? We need to have a summer camp for everyone. I think that the summer youth program should be year round. Young people should be able to work the entire year, particularly nowadays. My granddaughter has no problem. She's 17. She has no problem calling me saying, "Grandpa, can you sell me $500?" And she says it without even blinking. You know, and the thing about it is that $500 when I was coming up, I couldn't even imagine asking my parents for $500. Nowadays, that ain't even no money. My son, who's 38 years old, he works in Kings County in the crisis unit. He told me that he hasn't been going out on dates. I said, "What's wrong with you, boy? You don't got a girlfriend?" Nothing. He said he can't afford it. He says that he says the guy on a date is too expensive. He said even a cheap date is gonna cost you 300. He said, "Pop, I just ain't got it." I said, "Wow." So yeah, but all jokes aside, we need to restore some old fashioned, fundamental, values, starting out with loving each other, caring for each other, letting our young people know that it's okay, for you to make a mistake. That's a part of life. But I want you to, to not make such a mistake that it costs you your life. And so we just have to invest more time in our young people, and the only way to do that is to first care about them and love them and say, I know that you might have gone a little astray, but let me pull you on back in because you're worth the investment. And that's what we have to do. That's what I've been doing.
And I think that and the parents, I know parents work. I know some are working more than one job, but
Hmm.
we have to go back as parents. We had these children, and we're responsible for them.
That's
And
right.
we have to stop saying, "Oh, I'm working. I don't have time. I don't have time for this." This. No, no, no. It can't work that way because you're the one who can. You're the one who has the control over your child. If you
Hmm.
want someone else to help have that control, then you got this. You have to allow the other people to be able to discipline your kids or whatever. But now they're even talking about closing down Rikers Island. So okay, so if
Yeah.
you close it down because they probably want to build some luxury buildings out there or something, what are you supposed to do with all these people?
They're going to be
Where you
roaming
going
the
to put them
streets.
at?
They're
You
not.
know,
They're going to be out in the streets, and that's what I think the whole the bail reform is so that they don't have the overcrowdedness. They don't have the jails. They can start shutting them down like they want to, because they even shut down the one downtown. So and they're building what, a luxury building there.
yeah.
So I mean, this is the plan.
Well, I'm going to tell you this. Luckily for me, I've traveled around the country in my prison reform work, and there are actually places on Earth, on the planet Earth, where there's practically no crime. When I first went in 1998, I went to Amsterdam, and when I went there, what I noticed is I'm walking down the street. I noticed that most of the cars had keys in the ignition. I said, "Oh, that's odd." I remember when I went into a store and I was trying to buy something, and the guy looked, he was a little irritated. And I said, probably with Brooklyn attitude, said, "Is there a problem?" And he said, "No, no, there's no problem." He says, "Well, actually, I was about to leave when you came in, so I was wondering if you could, So I tried to gather up my stuff. You know what the man said to me? He put the keys on the counter and says, "Look, when you get what you want, just leave the money on the counter and lock the door on your way out." And he left. So
That
I'm looking around and I'm saying I was born at night, but it wasn't last night. Right? Don't try to play me. This is a setup. But I realized that it wasn't a setup.
Mm-mm.
that where this was a place in the world where crime just wasn't. They had
Exactly.
no unemployment.
No.
Everyone had access to home care. Everything that we criminalized was legal. Marijuana was legal. Cocaine, heroin was legal as long as you're in a safe injection space, right? Prostitution was legal, yet they had no STDs. They had no crime. They had no violence. And I'm saying to myself, this here is crazy because it was a surreal reality for me to know that there's a place in the world where crime, they said the crime rate was like 2%. And when they say crime, they mean something like a domestic situation, something. There's no such thing as anyone being shot or anything like that. It was unheard of. And in fact, I got on the bus, and it was strange because the thing where you punch your ticket wasn't at the front of the bus; it was in the middle of the bus. So I
But
said to one of the women, I said, "Well, what happens if somebody doesn't punch their ticket?" She says, "Oh my God! Oh, I'm sure they'd feel terrible that they didn't get their chance to make their contribution to society." This was the
mm-hmm.
woman. I looked around and said, "Y'all, somebody's playing me." You know what I'm saying?
Mm-mm.
Y'all got me
And
on video.
That goes
they
to show you that we can live civilized if we
We
exactly,
can live civilized. I've seen it with
exactly,
my own eyes. I've seen it not
exactly,
only there when I went to
exactly.
Sweden. I've seen it in Sweden. I've
Mm-hmm.
seen it
Yep,
in various different places.
yep.
That crime does not have to be the norm.
And
Violence does not have to be the norm.
same way in Dubai, if don't get arrested there, you
That's right.
don't even
Oh,
think
well,
about getting
well, it's
right.
arrested in
Now,
harsh
Dubai.
punishment. You know that if you're going to be arrested and you're going to get a harsh punishment, you would think twice before you start doing anything. I know I would.
Mm-hmm.
I sure would myself. And yeah, so there are some examples for us to follow around the world. But you got to remember, we are peaceful people. I mean, let's just go back. Not only look at the negative part of our history, let's look at the positive part. We are peaceful people. Just as a people, we're peaceful. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? We just want to love each other and love on each other. We want to respect and support each other. We want to raise each other's kids. Do you know that in the African dialect, there's no such term as a bastard child? There's no such thing. Everybody's my child. Everybody's everybody's child. There's no such thing as your child, my child. They say it takes an entire village to raise a child. I mean, that has meaning to it. That has significance. This is not just some corny cliche that we're saying. This stuff is real.
Hmm. Well, we want to thank you, Dr. Pryor, for coming on and enlightening us. You've been, you always a wealth of knowledge, anyway. But we just and I'll say it, and people don't want to hear it, but I'm going to say it. Parents, we need to step it up. You need to know what your kids are doing. You need to know who they're with. You need to know who they're hanging out with.
That's right.
Because I'm telling you, we partnered with the Department of Correction, and they came and did the session on presentation on gang violence. And I'm
Mm.
telling you, I was floored. I couldn't even speak when I left the workshop because the stuff that they told about how these kids get into the gangs, the language they use that when they're in the gangs and they're sitting right
Hmm.
up in your house as your children and you don't even know that they're in a gang. And
Yep.
because some of the words that they use, I had heard the words myself, especially about the shooter. I was like,
Mhm.
that's what that mean. And
Yep.
and I said, I thought they was talking about something else. He said, no, that's the word for if you the shooter in the game. And
Oh yeah.
your children sitting up there talking that language in front of you, and you don't even know it. And see, our parents need to come out when you are having something and you hear about it. You need to take the time and go so you can learn something, so you know what your kids are involved in, or whether they're involved in a gang or whatever. We have to pay more attention to our children. And as parents, I don't care how busy you are. I don't care if you got 10 jobs. You need to take time to get your kids involved in something to keep them off the street, because they are things out there for your kids to get involved in.
I want to say amen to that.
Hmm.
It is, because they always say there's no programs, they're not this, they're not that. Well, okay, if you can't find the program, then they got chores to do. We had chores to do
Mhm.
when we came home from school, so you didn't have time to run the street. You had
Right.
stuff that you had to
Right.
do. And if you
Right.
wasn't doing the chores, we knew where you were.
Hmm. That's true.
Half the time the parents don't even know where these kids are. You know, I especially, and I'm gonna stop because our time is up. When I would be out in the summertime watering my grass, it could be 11 and 12 because I go out late at night, and I see these kids coming down the street, 12 and 13 years old, and I'm like, why are they outside this time of night?
Right.
Coming down the
Right.
street? I mean, what is this? Do the parents
Well,
even know where they are?
we need to sound the alarm. We need to let parents know it's time to step up, step out, step in. But our future's at stake here, and there's nothing that I think is of greater importance than us contributing and making sure that our youth are protected and cultivated and nurtured and given what they need in order for them to be successful human beings.
Yeah. Well, thank you again. Thank you for all the work that you do. And I know you're on a mission, and I hope you will continue on that mission. And if anyone wants to get in touch with Dr. Pryor, he's at Mega Evans College, so you can always stop by his office. But call first, because he's always on the run, and even if he's in the state, we don't know where he's in because he's everywhere. But he has done so much for the community, and we really appreciate you for doing that. So we are pleased to have the opportunity to highlight you tonight. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
And we'll
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure meeting you, Tiffany. I
Pleasure.
wish everyone the best. And you guys, if you ever need anything from me, just simply pick up the phone.
yes, we will.
Thank
Okay,
you.
so thank you all for joining us, staying for the after show. Thank you so much, and hope you got something out of the show tonight. So as
Thank you.
always, we'll see you next.